your cozy movie? A movie that's not necessarily your favorite, but one that you can watch a bunch of times when you're feeling down and under the blues and it just makes you feel good. Maybe it's a bright and colorful movie that washes the grayness of the real world with its lush, varied canvases. Maybe it's a comedy that removes the weight of monotony of jobs more interested in only productivity, statistics, and profit, with the laughter and levity that the film gives you. Maybe it's a film that's personal to you. You have an attachment to it for whatever reason, nostalgia, relatability, or how it has stuck with you. I don't know your answer, but for me, I'd say my pick is The Road to El Dorado. Man, I love this period of 2D animation. These movies were a bit more experimental both in stories and styles, especially from major studios. It deviated from telling more classical stories to having more contemporary settings, not strictly modern, but Disney went from fairy tales to the 1800s with Atlantis, made a comedy with a Peruvian pre-Columbian aesthetic, and of course a mix of pirate and sci-fi with Treasure Planet. Likewise, Don Bluth made an animated classic about the daughter of the last Tsar, who was rumored to have survived the whole and subsequently tanked Fox Animation with Titan AE, which I will admit it's pretty fucking good. And with DreamWorks entering the animation business with a biblical epic alongside Ant, followed by El Dorado, Spirit, and Sinbad. Not exactly winners at the box office, but definitely different, and I find myself loving these movies with a tinge of rose-tinted glasses. But for now, it's El Dorado time. A full retrospective of this movie will have to wait another day. Right now, I don't have the insight or the time to take a look and explain completely why it sticks with me so much. But let me give you the Cliff Notes version and a general rundown of what the movie is. Released in 2000, it's a DreamWorks animated movie, the second hand-drawn production and third one in general. It had a bit of a trouble and delayed production, initially a more mature and serious venture that then got morphed into a comedy. I've heard something like that before. In short, after some middling reviews and since 2D animation during the 2000s was on its way out in favor of 3D animation, it bombed and was written off as one of the many animation blunders of the early 2000s. And since it's the early 2000s, the film came out during the time where the biggest movies would get licensed video game tie-ins. Now, if there's something that has persisted about video game tie-ins, is that they are low quality, rushed nature, and also a great source of comedy for YouTube personalities. Seriously, people have made some serious dough ripping on a lot of these games. You don't see them nowadays anymore, to the dismay of many people who also see them as a source of creative adaptations of their source material. Some unique mechanics, and some that are generally good and highly regarded. Some that come to mind are Toy Story 2 for PS1, Two Towers and Return of the King, X-Men Origins Wolverine, GoldenEye is an easy one of course. There's a few more and the conversation is interesting to have and to listen, making fun of the games that come out rushed because they need to coincide with their respective movie, and praising the diamonds in the rough. Where in that camp the Road to El Dorado games go onto, not even I know. I tried the Game Boy Color game a few years ago out of curiosity and love for the movie, didn't get past the first level, so now let's rectify that. Alright, two games enter the ring, a PC/PS1 game and a Game Boy Color one. Let's start simple with the 8-bit version. Alright, published by Ubisoft. Nowadays, mostly AAA slot producers, but this is from their Rayman days. Maybe something decent will come out of it. And Light and Shadow Production used to be a French studio whose works include the perennial masterpieces such as Ants the Racing Game, the PC port of Pac-Man World 2, Inspector Gadget games, and being absorbed into Hip Interactive. Okay. is a title screen. Fine, I'll try to riff it on it less. I'll give it an honest critique. And going into the cutscenes, well, some of them are fairly competent as 8-bit portrayals. Sometimes, if you squint your eyes, you can see a decent pixelated drawings of Tully and Miguel. But other times, well, they tried. They can be off-model sometimes, but hey, they can be a good chuckle. And that goes for the game's aesthetic. Blown up on a big screen, it can look janky and blurry. But from a smaller display, it looks good enough. Even on my second monitor with OBS, the smaller view works to its favor way more than my bigger monitor. I'm pretty sure on a handheld it'll look even better, although aside from playing it on a GBASP, good luck seeing the game, bucko. The environments are actually nicely detailed. Nothing complex, it's a GBC game, but it looks pleasant enough. The first level is Spain, similar to the movie, so extra points for faithfulness, I guess. The ship looks fine, you know, it's okay. The jungle setting is quite varied considering it's like a fourth of the game exploring the jungle. It's a predominantly black background with splashes of trees and nature, so the setting of a deep jungle, and I think it nailed the balance of color that the film had, considering the hardware. I mean, how the film is both vividly colored and not garish. It's not unicorn rainbow colored puke like movies aimed at actual children tend to be sometimes. It hits the sweet spot that I just adore. Heck, in the 8-bit game, there's a level where you can watch a sunset through some of the openings of the forest. With the Mesoamerican pyramids in the background, it looks really nice and it ties into how the movie was a clusterfuck of pre-Columbian native aesthetics. And there's multiple suns. I know the effect is that it's one sun through different clearings, but since there's no parallax, it looks like a bunch of suns. In this episode of Film Theory, is Golden Glory the road to El Dorado and opium-induced dream? In general, the jungle levels are the aesthetical peak of the game. A deep jungle, sunset jungle, pink sky jungle, swamp and night jungle, it's actually not bad, even when the textures glitch. Caves aren't the worst. They're colorful enough to not just be generic caves, they're color-coded and some of the later ones even have drawings on them. El Dorado itself is nice looking as well. I love pre-Columbian aesthetics and I guess it's a bit noticeable. But the inside isn't as appealing, color choices aren't good. Overall, the game looks good for a licensed title, and the music's... Nothing stands out, kinda sticks in your mind after a while, but that's mostly for the time I spent in these levels. It's chiptunes and it works. Nothing to say there. Alright, with that out of the way, a game can be pretty to look at, but it only matters if the game's good. Is the game any good? I mean, kinda. I was honestly surprised to find a perfectly functional, occasionally fun platformer. The game is an A to B platformer with an explorative touch. I don't think it does the action platforming that well. I mean, there are a couple of set pieces, but they have issues to get through. If I had to compare it to anything, the closest comparison is maybe Donkey Kong Country. You have to get to the end of the level while collecting shit on the way. Except that in Donkey Kong Country, you have bananas, banana coins, balloons, Kong letters, something else. I haven't played the original DKC, only Country Returns on Wii. The collectibles meant something, aside from getting more lives, so you had an incentive. Heck, even just completing the game 101%. Not in this game. You can collect coins and bags. That's it. Coins only improve your score, which gives you life every 1000 points, which pretty useful since that's the only way you can get lives in the game and there are no checkpoints. More on that later. And the bags. Well, at first I didn't know what they did aside from granting bigger point payouts compared to coins, but you're just a select button press away from the ranged option of the game. You can kill enemies with the literal power of money. It ended up being my method of choice, although I recommend holding it off for a few levels. The early ones are light on enemies, and everyone in the game is beatable with both methods of attack. There aren't enemies immune to one or the other, but throwing a bag of coins or presumably bricks seems to do a trick for everyone, ranging from Spaniards, sailors, and natives even. They call me the John Wick of Spain. The level design was surprisingly open. I would have expected a more linear platformer with a couple of things to find out of the beaten path. I mean, there isn't anything worthwhile to find in these levels. No collectibles, no red scrolls, no star coins, and like I mentioned earlier, You won't find any extra lives in the world, only regular ass coins or pesetas, I guess, and bags to recharge your ammo. This makes the game open but barren, and by the end you'll only focus on getting to the end of the level. Oh shit, this game has levels. First 3 levels take place in the Spanish town. I mean, it looks nice, but it's unremarkable aside from this Lego ass looking dude. And the 3rd level is one of 2 times the gameplay suddenly shifts. The first shift being a bull chase that isn't that big of a change. You can jump and you don't stop running. Also, you can now roll when the game doesn't tell you can do it. That's fun. And it shifts once again for an Altivo level, where you have to duck to avoid birds and jump to avoid cactuses. Cacti. It doesn't make much sense unless Miguel is riding Altivo by its side, but I did come to a strange revelation. It's a fucking dinosaur game. And also the background looks more like Spirit than El Dorado. I mean, it looks like the USA more than the ambiguous, probably Mexico country of El Dorado. I don't think the levels require an excessive thesis on why they're pretty much the same. 1, they're pretty much the same, and 2, nobody has played these games in 15 years. I could say Thanos gets suplexed by Samus and nobody would contradict me. I kid, but it's true. You go through the Galleon, the jungle, which is admittedly my favorite theme, especially the sunset jungle where it's framed like a deep dark jungle with windows that reveal the sunset, bathing the pyramids in pink orange hue. I adore it aside from the multiple suns. In this episode of Film Theory is Golden Glory, The Road to El Dorado, and Opium to... And hey, it also gave us this gem. Wonderful. Then there's a couple of levels inside temples and some on the streets of El Dorado. It's all just as it changes, a couple of mechanics like using ropes, moving platforms, but nothing to blow you away. But this game has bosses. Attempts to have bosses anyway. They're pretty jank overall and also really fucking easy. Remember when I told you to stock up bags as ammunition? Yeah, just spam that shit before they kill you and you're golden. HA! As an example, the first boss is modeled after the sailors that gambled the map to El Dorado. I think he has the last part of the map, since in this game you have to collect all the map pieces instead of receiving it whole like in the movie. You can tank almost every boss, not only this fat fuck, but the Jaguar and even Big Man Cortez goes down like bitches. The ball game is somewhat different. It's not some dumb shit like the developer suddenly said, hey, let's make it wild guns, but with balls. You just have to magically know that you can jump on this. It's a One Piece character, Jesus, and you have to score. Yeah, if you didn't notice, it ain't giving Metal Gear Rising or Fury a run for its money with bosses.
Now this is a fight!
I should talk about that game one day. But Metal Gear Rising doesn't have Big Man Cortez. So far, so even. Well, let's give Metal Gear the point on the story, because I hope this wasn't your first exposure to the Road to El Dorado, because the story is incomprehensible. You're digging around in Spain, you get a token of Miguel's friendship, which is nothing, so what was that about? You platform on a boat, not like break out of it, just teleport to a boat, fight the sailor boss, then you appear at the jungle, arrive at El Dorado, proceed to dig around, play some ball, fight a Jaguar, as you do, and then you fight Cortez and the game ends. As far as we know, Miguel and Tulio stayed at El Dorado. Yeah, there's no context for anything that happens. If memory serves me, Chief Tanabuck barely appeared in Sekko Khan. I don't even remember if he's in the game. Bottom line, it's better than Other M. Hey, the Ninja Gaiden guys did this. How could you have them fuck up a combat system this hard? Samus has no melee options in a character action game. It's like playing Devil May Cry Bayonetta with only the guns. Oh, sorry, got sidetracked there. So that's El Dorado on Game Boy Color. Wait, I'm sorry. Gold and Glory, The Road to El Dorado. Overall, it was okay. I mean, there isn't anything here that's worth praising very highly aside from a few aesthetics and the fact the game is functional. I found a bug once, but that was more funny than anything. And if you're a big fan of the movie, I can see this being a decent hour or two, depending on how much you die. It is a perfectly average game, and I have nothing more to add. I have to give a disclaimer. I'm not well versed in adventure games, them being narrative games where you have to interact with the environment and the characters to solve puzzles and progress the story. The best example I can give is Monkey Island and Grim Fandango. Not because I'm uninterested in them, I just haven't played one yet. Although I am really interested in the Indiana Jones games and the Blade Runner one. And I say this because El Dorado for PS1 and PC, I'll be referring to it just as PC, is an adventure game. You interact with the environment and characters to progress and solve puzzles. I find this style actually suited in the source material. The movie is a comedy adventure with amazing writing, and this translates well into this type of game, where it's most of the characters talking about the environment, the situation on hand, or the items they find lying about. And not like The Nightmare Before Christmas, where it's an animated movie and they made it into Devil May Cry. For the game itself, let's start with the writing. It's surprisingly solid for a game that was probably most definitely rushed to completion. More on that later. The main focus is of course Miguel and Tulio, and they're characterized fairly well. There were scenarios where I feel like the roles should have been reversed. Like for example, at the brig at Cortez's ship, it's Tulio who has the idea of giving El Tivo the apple, and Miguel is the skeptical one. That should have been reversed, and then you can drive an excuse for Miguel going out cold, and that's that. And that's the biggest difference between movie Miguel and Tulio and their game counterparts. Tulio was always the guy with a plan, and Miguel had the thirst for adventure. The whole reason the movie happens because Miguel insists on getting the map. But in the game, yes, it's still true. But Tulio makes crazier plans, and Miguel knows that and is more done with that shit, even if he still follows along.
Could you give me a hand with this?
Spaghetti arms.
Hear that?
All I can hear is you pacing up and down.
That's El Tivo up there, Cortez's warhorse. Hey, El Tivo! Here, boy! Maybe he can get us out of here.
And how on earth is he going to do that?
He could throw the keys down.
You know, Tulio, that might not be the dumbest idea you've ever had. But it's close.
But it works in the end. They bounce off each other really well. You can tell they're close friends from their banter alone, and it's really enjoyable. This is helped greatly by the voice acting. Obviously the budget was a penny in a shirt button, so they couldn't get Kevin Kline and Kenneth Branagh. But the VAs, while they do sound different, they don't sound like the movie. They do a great job voicing the protagonists. They deliver their lines with the amount of ham that is required of each to elevate the humor. On the topic of voice acting, I don't think the rest of the cast is too shabby. They sound like they had fun voicing the NPCs, and while a couple of them stand out as way too hammy,
vibrant, colorful, with crisp floral top notes, it's a fragrance you can never forget.
I'll vouch for that.
You're right. It's peculiar, it's earthy, and yet it's strangely appealing. I like it.
it's only good fun and the game isn't very serious. It doesn't need Oscar-worthy performances. I'll get the gameplay out of the way since the narrative scenarios of the game are its main point and focus. The game is controlled solely with the keyboard, or the DualShock if you're playing on PS1. It's an adventure game but not a point-and-click game. You move around, have a button to interact with items and people. You can run, crouch, and walk sideways, which is never used in the game, so I wonder what the point of it is. Sounds nice, but if you despise tank controls, this isn't going to be pleasant. There's apparently the option to control it depending on the angle, but on PS1 it was so uncomfortable that I switched back, and on PC it doesn't even allow you to change it. But hey, both games have control binding options, which is very nice and forward thinking, I guess. I haven't played enough games to say that, but I've only seen Super Metroid as the only older example. If you played classic Resident Evil, it shouldn't bother you that much. Hey, speaking of Resident Evil, them pre-rendered background, what they look like in each version is something I'll discuss later. For now, let's stick with PC. and they actually look pretty good. I mean, yeah, they look like 90s CGI, but the good kind that makes you a bit nostalgic. They tend to have a nice contrast, and aside from a couple of times, they have good readability on where you can go and the items you can interact with due to them shining. And I especially love the backgrounds used in the jungle portion of the game. They are aesthetically pleasing. And on a completely unrelated note, yeah, the models look exactly like a late 90s PC game. They look janky and they have more edge than Shadow the Hedgehog. But I can still find them charming in that PS1 way. The models don't look like what they're supposed to look, and that's the fun thing. Heck, I think the way they translated these 2D designs into 3D deserves a bit of credit. They have some of their 2D elements incorporated. It's not Spider-Verse, but there are little touches that make them pop. The animations are less polished at times. Just look at Tulio's crouch. Like, what the fuck is this shit? I don't think I have to add anything there though. And the last visual detail I have yet to mention is the presence of FMVs. Not only from the movie, but also with the in-game graphics. The last ones are not animated badly. They look pretty goofy and stretchy, and they are used to show actions that aren't possible in-game, like the bull destroying the fence. And the ones taken from the movie aren't exactly the same. It's the same animation, just with the dialogue removed, different music, and sound effects. It's surprisingly well mixed, and it uses competent, if stock sound effects, but it perplexes me why they don't have characters speaking in them, when the voice actors used in-game provide sound effects like grunts and screams for these cutscenes. Now, let's get to the meat and potatoes of the game. The game. Its plot is closer to the movie than the Game Boy game, although Once Upon a Time in America has closer plot to El Dorado than the Game Boy Color game. It skims on a few details, omits others, and makes shit up in some cases. Par for the course. It's framed as Miguel and Tulio retelling the story of their adventures. The beginning in Spain shifts from being a frantic chase scene to finding a way to escape without being seen. Delving into the actual in-game progression, your objective is to get to the docks, but the way is blocked by a paywall of 20 pesetas for men, while women get free passes. So these two sausages have to find another way to get across. They attempt to gamble their way to fame, but first need a bag of corn to catch a kitchen, to sell a chicken to make 5 pesetas off 1. These guys are financing geniuses. Taking the pesetas to the gambler, you proceed to play a minigame of rolling dice. You try to predict if the next number is higher or lower than the last number you rolled. It's totally RNG, but it's the kind of RNG that's on your favor, because I'm sure you won't lose this unless you're actively trying to lose. It's just a bit tedious and annoying. But okay, you clean house, and before leaving, the gambler offers you the map to the golden one. In exchange for all the winnings of the last game, dude, I traded chickens for this! But you actually play and get the map. And no money, so we're back to square one. At least the guards already left, so we can find other ways of progressing. Investigating further gets us a slingshot, a bullfighter whose every boast is, ironically, bullshit, and El Diablo, a bull that remembers this matador, and we need to break a fence in order to get a dress to get past the guard, so do the math. After releasing the bull, you divert its anger towards you, where I don't know why you can't run here where the fence is, instead you have to take the long way. Just book it till you grow some balls. You get the dress after some FMB shenanigans, and you get past the guard by Tulio dressing up as a woman and distracting the guard.
I have a beautiful house in the hills. You must visit me there.
Right!
This part is weird because it tells you to sneak behind the guard, but using the side step wasn't working. Only crouching gets you past without being noticed, and that's kinda whack. After that, you tell the guard to go to hell, and then we get...
What are you looking at, Miguel?
You know something? That dress, it really suits you.
I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that.
I'm going to pretend I didn't say it.
a moment. The game now tells you that to escape, you need to use a conveyor belt. But for it to work, you require a carrot. And that carrot is behind some top-level Fort Knox as security. After doing that, you get in the ship, and you get a regular intermission by President Miguel and Tulio, which works like divisions between each level, stuck on the brick. This is the aforementioned scenario where it makes more sense if Miguel is the one who suggests getting El Tivo's help, and Tulio's dismissive of the idea. You can just say when Miguel's plan worked, he got hit by the boot hook, and Tulio thinks it was some other force that pushed the hook. Anyways, you attempt to escape once with Tulio, getting keys from a monkey, which at first I thought it was piss easy because I chose the first 2 keys out of 5 and they worked. But for the PS1 run, I had different combinations. So either it's different on either versions or it's randomized. You get caught by a sailor polishing cannons, and then you have to take control of Miguel, who can get caught as many times as you like and he won't give up. Hey Tulio, let me give you a tip. Grow some balls. You disguise yourself as a sailor and start polishing cannons with the guy's socks. I've heard worse business proposals, and with some biscuits and the boat hook, you can trap a rat to kill this guy with a stroke. And then you have to open a hole in the wall by shooting a cannon? So you're telling me that if these scallywags entered combat, they'd just sink themselves. And nobody woke up after this. Damn. You get to the deck, with Altivo's help you bring down the boat you need to escape, and voila, you're now entering the best part of the game, the jungle. So far, not very brain-taxing. Yeah, it doesn't have any puzzles with strange logic or puzzles at all. The reason I mention this now is because of the jungle. It became apparent that the game doesn't really want to test you, just to give you a short, fun ride. You navigate the jungle following the clues on the map, instead of using a montage like in the film. This had the effect of making El Dorado a location that's a 5-minute walk from the shore. The trek isn't very long if you take raw distance in mind, but anyway, you make your way to El Dorado with the help of Bebo. You know Bebo, the armadillo from the movie? Yeah, this came as a shock to me. The armadillo has a name. It's Bebo, and it's a reference to one of the film's directors. And some people think he is the actual god, at least the Redditors said so, and I find that funny. Anyway, travel with Bebo through the jungle, crossing landmarks on the map like the Eagle Stonehead, the Shadow Bird. You cross a swamp where the water looks like Nickelodeon goo, and it unintentionally or not references DreamWorks' first movie.
Now, what did that Moses guy do? That was a nice party trick. Where's my stick? There can be miracles, my foot.
The whipping woman that, in order to conceal a ladder, has a very wide waterfall, and finally the dragon's head. I say it's the best part of the game because of the aesthetics alone. I love the backgrounds in these areas. It looks very tropical, but not the kind where it's very hot and humid, even though that's what it probably is. It reminds me more of the cloud forests that are like an hour away from my house, and they're the best place to travel to. Again, not visually, but the atmosphere hit me similarly, and that's one praise I can give the game. Its atmosphere. I recently noted that unconsciously I place a great value on a game's world and atmosphere. Well, to me the game's most important aspect is its gameplay. My favorite games are the ones where I love its atmosphere, maybe not Metroid Dread or Sin and Punishment specifically, but when I analyzed why my two favorite games, Metroid Prime and Paper Mario, resonate with me even though I prefer action games, I like it when I have to be quick and I can pull off insane shit, and I recently got into fighters, and even though I absolutely suck at every single one of them, I'm having a blast. But Paper Mario is an RPG and Metroid is a slow, methodical, first-person adventure. Obviously the gameplay is sublime, but it's not an adrenaline-filled romp. I appreciate both sides. I like it when the world feels lived in. Hell, I've been reading Tolkien recently, and even though younger me felt like these books were kind of meandering and full of fluff, I now find them enriching and perfect for painting a picture of a vast, deep fictional world. Now, El Dorado isn't any of that, but I appreciate its vibe. It doesn't have any music during gameplay, only ambience and paired with a pre-rendered backgrounds. I think it has a very cozy, nostalgic, yet adventurous vibe, and I really dig playing it. It's one of those games where you just kind of play and lose yourself. We're going back to the puzzle issue. Take this part for example. You have to use 2 skull elevators in order to proceed, but in this game the complexity of puzzles doesn't go further than switching characters and pulling levers or interacting with items. After this, the Weeping Lady, where aside from the great backgrounds, you have the once in a lifetime chance to play the game as an armadillo.
Bebo,
Somebody should mod the game to play it entirely as Bebo. After this point, you get to the dragon's head, and you skip forward to the part where Sekal Khan attacks you with a stolen jaguar, without any context on why he should even attack you. He doesn't even have a model in-game, nor does Chief Tanavok, and there's no drama or romance. It essentially skips the middle chunk of the movie, and that's the point that got me thinking how rushed the game is. Not because of the bugs. Well, there are some, but it's not a game-breaking issue. I understand that the middle chunk of the movie isn't loaded with adventuring, but I think you could have made something with this. And after this point, there's only 2 more levels, which are sizable, but it feels off that it ends somewhat early. The game is only around 3 or 4 hours depending on how fast you are. This reeks of, we want to make the game longer, but the deadline was close, so we need to book it. Also, the fact that Altivo barely appears, two important side characters don't appear in-game, and Chell, you know, Chell doesn't appear in-game even though we see a model made for her, well, something smells funny, and it isn't the sulfur from the volcano. We're all gonna die. You take back control in the lava zone where Sekol Khan is attacking you with a jaguar, but you have to get past these 4 statues with anything you have on yourself except for a random golden disc you find lying on the floor. After some lava platforming that confirms that LEGO Star Wars was a rip of this game, I mean, look at it, you arrive at a temple. Not Sekol Khan's temple because, well, it's not where it's supposed to be. Anyway, it's the most annoying segment of the game because of these motherfuckers. These green spiders that you have to avoid. Problem is, these guys have the worst arachnophobia I have seen. If the spider gets close and makes a funny face, they run. And regardless of how far you go, you could just be one elevating platform from the very top, here comes a spider you didn't account for, and oops, to the very bottom. Dudes, you're 10 times its size, just spit on it. Behold, I have transcended godhood. And the game just crashed. While this is annoying, I have 2 thoughts on this. 1, abuse the save feature. Never forget to save, especially in this section, and it also forces you to get creative and avoid the spiders. I mean, in the first section, if you wait long enough, they eventually just retreat to their holes and never come back. That's good game design, fellas. And then there's this one section where you have to bait the spider into getting crushed by placing an apple on their platform. But the spider's trajectory leaves you with little room to actually run and place the apple, especially with the sort of clunky controls. You just gotta wait until the spider goes really far to the right. And 2, this elevator puzzle. You have to time the elevators in order to keep the spiders out of your way, and that's a nice little brain teaser. The biggest one you'll get in the game. You reach the top, playing FMV of how they got rid of Sekol Khan in the movie. Wait, what did he say? And he dies. No kidding. He wasn't mentioned again. They just say Cortez is on its way to El Dorado, and that's it. No Sekol Khan in sight, so in this alternate reality, he just drowns or gets crushed by a rock. So they need to see the entrance to El Dorado. But the giant water towers, you know, these ones that are clearly dry and empty, need to be filled. For that, we have to go to the scariest water treatment facility I have seen, and that's the final level of the game. Well, you have to make the water run, and you do that by a dimensional lapse. No, seriously, Miguel runs off on his own. Tulio investigates for ways to make the water flow. You open this door with a sunstone. Oh, hi little Miguel. A stone jaguar appears to be more alive than it's convenient. And you cut to Miguel standing in a place where Tulio came through to find an item. You proceed through another door and another jaguar wakes up. Then shift back to Tulio and trick the jaguar into following you to a trapdoor. I failed the first time, but the game doesn't have game overs, so it just kicks you out of the temple. You trick the stone jaguar, do the same as Miguel, and for some reason you're in the same place, but you don't bump into each other until the game tells you to? What's the deal here? Suddenly phase out of reality, or what? Well, with the water flowing, an FMV of the climax of the movie, and we end the game, discovering that Miguel and Tulio are telling the story from a raft, alongside Altivo and Chell, whose only in-game appearance has her washing a cloth.
Just enjoy the weather.
Never mind the weather, it's your turn to paddle.
Okay, here we go. Steady him out.
I've told you a million times, Miguel. The sun sets in the west, Spain is to the east.
And I've explained a million times, Tulio. It all depends which side of Spain we're on. The world's round.
Well, that's the story of the game, and aside from the fact that the story doesn't include portrayals of Chell, Sekol Khan, and Tiff Tanabok, and LT was barely there, hey, there's also quite a bit of voice acting in this game, and it's all made for NPCs. Why not get someone to voice important characters? Yeah, there aren't a ton of voice actors, but I'm sure some of them are pulling double duty. And get someone else to voice Chell, because there was only one woman VA in the game. Well, even then, I still enjoy the story quite a bit. It's not high art or anything deep. This isn't going to change your views on life. but it's very entertaining for the couple of hours that it lasts. Not a sprawling adventure, but at least it doesn't wear its welcome. Could it be better? Yes, definitely. But I don't think that was in the cards for this game. Just being entertaining as it is and functional most of the time is an achievement. Like I said, there's a point in this game where you can just feel the budget disappearing and the devs running to finish this before the deadline. But I mean, it's pretty neat. I initially intended to play this game through DuckStation, since I assumed that using a great PS1 emulator is better than trying to play a PC game from 2000 that have the possibility of straight up not running. So much so, in fact, that I attempted to run a virtual machine to play the game, cause that's what I'm currently doing at school. Not the best idea when I was just starting to learn and I couldn't even do a boot, but turns out the game runs perfectly fine on Windows 10. I'll have to check if it runs on Windows 11, but you have to go through some hoops. I'll have the My Abandonware link in the description. You have to download the ISO file, then download this program to convert it to an ISO because the file isn't actually an ISO, instead another wacky format. Then you run the ed ISO, install the game, and there you have it. Sounds a bit much instead of just downloading the PS1 game and running it. Heck, with a controller, but I recommend you go out of the way to play the PC version. It has nicer looking models, well, as nice as they can look. Pre-rendered backgrounds look really nice, and the audio isn't compressed. The PS1 game, like I said, you can actually play with a controller without any strange wizardry to make it work. After playing the PS1 game for a while, once I complete the PC game, well, the menus are different, Button Rebind doesn't have the wireframe model. There's a tutorial that was my first introduction to the game's models and animations, and I had a solid 5-minute laugh. There are now loading screens between levels, but the biggest change is how everything looks lesser and more compressed. Voice clips, background, models are lower res. The game is overall slower at loading, and I'm not sure if it runs at a lower frame rate. It's the overall inferior version. I mean, you can probably play it legitimately if you track down the PS1 disc, and it would be easier than playing the PC version, but that's what my abandonware and the Internet Archive is here for. I recommend the PC version even if it can be more inconvenient, because sometimes the game tells me to insert the disc, and I look at my PC's disk drive the same way my dog looks for his ball. The next day it suddenly resolved whatever fit it was throwing, and there were a couple of small hoops you have to get over if you want to install. But I still say PC is the way to go. If you already have DuckStation ready, I mean, it won't hurt, and it's easier for most people, I think. Well, that's the trip of Golden Glory, the road to El Dorado. Two pretty niche video game times that I turned to in search of burning garbage, or maybe something halfway decent. The verdict? I'd say play the Game Boy Color game as a neat oddity that you can play for shits and giggles. It's a little over an hour long, and it's not exactly the most fruitful hour of your life, but it's maybe a nice lunch break game. It's aesthetically pleasing for the hardware, and gameplay wise, it's serviceable. It's more so a neat little thing if you like the movie and you can say you did it. The 3D game was honestly a very pleasant surprise. I was not expecting to have as much fun as I had with it. Its graphically dated models paired with its legitimately fun writing, nice looking backgrounds, and a general vibe that to me is very soothing. It's piss easy, but it's not an entirely bad thing. I like it when the game has challenge. Yeah. But it's relaxing to once in a while play something that's just there to give you a good time, like Kirby. I'm sure there are many adventure games with way better writing, but if you're like me and a big fan of the film, you'll probably get a kick out of Miguel and Tullius's antics. And I think overall the game's just good. Not the greatest video game in history, but a nice afternoon play. Have fun with a cup of coffee or a cold drink, some snacks, and go wild. It's functionally free nowadays on abandonware sites and the Internet Archive, so go do that if it's interesting, alright? As for me, well, I'm satisfied that today I struck not a city of gold, but a good golden pebble, because it's more than I expected. I think I'll sit back, relax, and maybe watch El Dorado again. That's all for me tonight. I bid you farewell, and may we meet again another time and place.